Good afternoon, everyone. The last question period, or the last Prime Minister question period in the House of Commons, happened yesterday, and I was away, so I didn't get to cover it. So I'm covering it now. There's lots of really excellent pieces in it. Mr. Scheer is very fiery. He put a lot into it, and I liked his performance in the House. I thought it was pretty good. Justin Trudeau, as usual, answered no questions, and I watched the whole thing, and I have detailed notes on it, and I'm going to do a video about it later. But I wanted to get this out, and this is Justin Trudeau not answering any questions on the $1 billion that he spent on non-citizens, on illegal migrants, people crossing into Canada. And so Mr. Scheer, again, I said is fiery in asking these questions, and he does a good job. So we're going to listen to about 3 minutes of their exchange, and I'm going to cut it off at the end, but at the end of it, I'll tell you what Mr. Scheer says as a comeback, and link will be in the description. You can check it out for yourself. And then I'm going to show you a couple of other stories that are two sides to the same coin. The Liberals are constantly crying poor unless you are somebody who is coming into Canada and needs some support. I'm not sure. Anyway, here is the first part. Watch Justin Trudeau not answer questions on his indefensible position on immigration. And this goes far beyond just the Global Compact on migration. This is far-reaching. The Prime Minister is MIA with regards to our border. He has zero interest in securing our border. Period. None. No interest at all. Okay, here you go.
Mr. Speaker, according to the parliamentary budget officer, the Prime Minister's failure at their border will cost over $1 billion, and provinces are sending their bills to the federal government. When will the Prime Minister understand that the only way to stop paying bills for over $1 billion is to close the breach or the loopholes in the Safe Third Country Agreement? The Right Honourable the Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we are working with the United States. We're working with our provincial partners to make sure that our immigration system will continue to be strong and reliable. We know that there are irregular arrivals. Asylum seekers are a challenge for our system. But at the same time, we can reassure Canadians that we do all necessary security checks. We make sure that our immigration system has integrity. We know it is a complex situation, but we are working with the provinces and with our partners.
Here's the first pause I'll take you through. So he said that we do all necessary security checks. And again, link is in the description. Please go watch for yourself. But here's a CBC Investigates report that was from today, December 13th, 2018, that says botched handling of gangster refugee claimant exposes Canada's screening weaknesses. Rare but growing problem needs to be addressed, expert says. Abdullah Hassil Farah, candid confession about his gangster past clearly impressed the Immigration and Refugee Board officer who presided over his first detention hearing on November 1st, 2017. Caught while crossing the border illegally near Emerson, Manitoba, the 27-year-old Somali citizen readily told the Canadian Border Services Agency, CBSA, officers he had an extensive criminal record, had been a Somali Outlaws gang member in Minneapolis, and was fleeing an arrest warrant for parole violation. Farah insisted, however, that he had only been a gang member for 2 years and had quit the criminal life 8 years earlier. At the detention hearing, the CBSA strongly recommended Farah be detained a few more days until it received his full criminal record from the U.S., but Immigration and Refugee Board, IRB, member Trent Cook clearly placed more weight on Farah's admission about his background than on the agency's suspicion about the degree of his criminality. Quote, "One of the best factors that play into your particular situation is your character," Cook said. Quote, "In my estimation, you're probably one of the most honest detainees that I have ever come across," he said, noting Farah had acted, quote, "contrary to his own interest by offering up his criminal history and gang ties." Quote, "What this indicates to me is that you are, based on your character and behavior, very likely to pursue all of your immigration matters in Canada with the same diligence and honesty you have demonstrated in your interview." Had Cook heeded the CBSA's recommendation and waited to obtain his entire U.S. criminal record, he would have learned that Farah had used 8 aliases, 2 different birth dates, and had convictions in 4 states, including a felony gun conviction. But Cook didn't heed the CBSA, and a federal court judge denied the agency's challenge of Cook's decision the next day. Farah was released in Winnipeg. So there you go, guys. That is our screening that Mr. Trudeau is saying, yeah, we're good enough. No problems here. There are no problems because we screen things. There you go. This happened in Manitoba. Winnipeg, do you feel safer? Back to Trudeau.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Mr. Speaker, not only is this crisis, which has been created by the Prime Minister, will it cost $1 billion, but it is also difficult for people living near Roxham Road. It's a crisis, and some of the so-called temporary shelters have become permanent. And there are bills to be paid by the provinces. The Prime Minister has to help the provinces and fix this crisis. The Right Honourable the Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we are ensuring that our immigration system is compassionate and fair while ensuring our border has integrity and while protecting our communities. We've invested $173 million in border security to speed up the processing of asylum claims. The Conservatives cut the budget of the CBSA by over $300 million, cut services to refugees, and they want Canada to violate international law. We will continue to apply our laws and respect our international obligations. The Leader of the Opposition.
Canada's immigration system should be compassionate and fair. There's nothing fair about crossing through an illegal border crossing from a safe part of upstate New York into Canada, jumping the queue, skipping the line, and forcing others to wait longer because more and more resources have to go to those coming into Canada illegally. That is the legacy that this Prime Minister caused with his irresponsible tweet. And literally, they have done nothing to stop the problem. Instead of just adding up the costs, will they finally do something to stop the crossings themselves?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are ensuring that our immigration system remains fair and compassionate, all the while ensuring the integrity of our border and the security of our communities. We will continue to ensure that Canadian law is applied and that our international obligations are respected. I will also highlight, Mr.
And here he just goes off and is just being rude. And then Mr. Scheer comes back with a pretty good barb saying, if you don't want to answer questions in this house, don't worry, you won't have to after October 2019. So it was pretty good exchange. And again, I'll get into the whole deal, but I wanted to talk about what Trudeau just said. The question at the beginning was, you've spent $1 billion according to the PBO. And he said clearly, we've budgeted $173 million. And that's over 2 years. That's not 1 year. That's over 2 years. And that was in the 2018 budget. But here is, okay, a tweet to prep this. It says, money, 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 money. How bad is the border crisis? So bad that Trudeau is bribing border residents with vast sums of cash for putting up with a constant stream of illegal border crossers. This is how you create a permanent welfare state, PPC. And it links to this Roxham Road. And that was the first thing that Mr. Scheer talked about. He said it's hard for residents of Roxham Road. It's hard for everybody in Canada, blah, 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 blah. And I would agree. And Trudeau's response was, we've invested $173 million. And that falls well short of even just Ontario's cost to this. So the processing costs alone are $340 million. And that's 2017-18 fiscal year. That's incredible. And that's according to the PBO. So here is a link and a description in the CBC that I saw earlier this morning, and it made my blood boil. So CBC reporting, Roxham Road residents financially compensated for asylum seeker challenges. Residents at Canada's busiest illegal crossing paid up to $25,000 for putting up with traffic increase. The federal government is compensating people living on or near Roxham Road with up to $25,000 for traffic associated with the influx of asylum seekers in recent years. Among those receiving the payments is Susan Heller, who owns a 200-acre farm about a kilometer from the New York border, just west of the Champlain-St. Bernard de la Colle crossing. A delivery driver recently knocked on her door and handed her a package with a grin from ear to ear, she said, and then he waited for her to open the parcel so he could see the look on her face. That would be awkward for me. I'd be like, see you later, buddy. But I understand this is supposed to be a news article. Back to the article. Quote, it was just out of the blue, Heller told CBC News. On the first page, it said, from the government, you are the recipient of $25,000 due to the inconvenience of the traffic and the noise. Heller is part of a group that has been helping asylum seekers, handing out warm clothing on the U.S. side of the border every Sunday because, quote, they're still coming through. And there's more to the article, link is in the description, but I wanted to point out that what part of the $173 million is pegged for compensating residents of Roxham Road for increased traffic? Why don't you just close the border? I do understand what's happening, and what's happening is absolutely criminal. It's travesty towards the Canada that people immigrated here correctly to. It's a travesty to natural-born Canadians. It's an absolute catastrophe. It is a catastrophe. And Justin Trudeau knows that he loses an election on this, which is why he denounces people as racist, which is why he feels fine standing up and yelling at Quebec grandmothers that they're racist if they ask about why are all these people getting taxpayer dollars and Canadians aren't. That is a legitimate question. That is a legitimate question. And Justin Trudeau tries to say that we're upholding Canadian law and international commitments. And that's weasel words and things to put people back to sleep. It just is not true. And watching what is happening, the erosion of our sovereignty, the erosion of our borders, and the handing over of those choices to unelected multinational UN or anybody else should not be allowed to be done by just a majority parliament. That is an incredible affront to democracy. Just so frustrating. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. And I will come out with a video talking about Mr. Scheer during this question period because he was fiery and deserves a video for it. And I appreciate the fire. We all have to hold Mr. Trudeau to account. I think there's room for conversation between Mr. Scheer, Mr. Bernier, and the rest of the leaders, obviously, when they weigh in. But there has to be consensus around border and border security. And if we can't even agree on that, then what is Canada, right? A nation without borders is no nation at all, in my opinion. And Justin Trudeau knows that if people realize what he's trying to do, they'll kick him out. And so I think we need to tell as many people as we can. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening. And we'll see you tomorrow.